to understand World War II, you have to understand that it basically started with how World War I ended.
The Treaty of Versailles blamed Germany for the whole war and hit it with crushing debts and punishments. Germany's economy imploded. Money became so worthless, people literally burned it for heat.
Then, in 1929, the Great Depression flattened the entire global economy. Millions were jobless, hungry, and furious, desperately looking for someone to blame and someone to save them.
Enter Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, promising to restore Germany's power and pride. But his message was built on hatred, scapegoating Jewish people and others with dangerous, poisonous lies. In Italy, Benito Mussolini and his fascists had already grabbed absolute power. And in Japan, the military seized control, hungry for empire, land, and resources. By the 1930s, three aggressive powers were rising. The rest of the world mostly hoped they would calm down. Germany's young democracy was fragile, plagued by chaos, street brawls, and one political crisis after another. The Nazis were masters of propaganda, flooding the country with rallies, posters, and radio to spread their message. Hitler started tearing up the Versailles rules, secretly rebuilding Germany's military. Nobody stopped him. He marched troops into the forbidden Rhineland. The world just watched. He annexed Austria without firing a single shot, the Anschluss. Then he demanded a big piece of Czechoslovakia.
Britain and France, terrified of another war, simply gave it to him. They called it appeasement.
Peace for our time, they announced. It was not going to be peace for their time. Months later, Hitler grabbed the rest of Czechoslovakia anyway. So much for the deal. Then he shocked everyone by signing a pact with his sworn enemy, Stalin, secretly agreeing to carve up Poland. With Stalin neutral, Hitler turned toward his real target, Poland. In Spain's brutal civil war, Hitler and Mussolini test drove their shiny new weapons, a chilling preview of what was coming. September 1st, 1939. Germany unleashed a terrifying new kind of warfare on Poland, Blitzkrieg, lightning war. Fast tanks, screaming dive bombers, total coordinated chaos. Poland was overwhelmed in weeks. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany. World War II had officially begun. Then, for months, almost nothing happened. People called it the phony war. Until 1940, when Germany struck west. Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, and Belgium all fell fast. The Germans stunned France by attacking through the Ardennes forest, where no one expected tanks. France collapsed in just 6 weeks. Paris fell. The British army was trapped at Dunkirk and was saved by a ragtag fleet of little civilian boats. Britain now stood alone. Hitler tried to bomb it into surrender in the Battle of Britain. But the Royal Air Force fought off the German planes, and Britain refused to break. Night after night, German bombs rained on London in the Blitz. But Londoners refused to panic and simply carried on.
Across occupied Europe, millions now lived under harsh Nazi rule, stripped of freedom, with fear on every corner.
So Hitler made his most fateful gamble. He betrayed Stalin and invaded the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa was the largest land invasion in all of history. Millions of men. At first, it worked terrifyingly well. The Germans smashed deep into Soviet territory. But the USSR was vast, its people resilient, and the merciless Russian winter was coming. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Japan was conquering across Asia and the Pacific. To pressure them, the United States cut off Japan's oil, so Japan decided to strike first. December 7th, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on the U.S. fleet at Pearl Harbor, a date which will live in infamy. The United States was now fully in the war. Now it was truly global. The Allies against the Axis, across every continent and ocean. In the north, the city of Leningrad was surrounded for nearly 900 days of cold, hunger, and endurance.
Back home, whole nations retooled, millions of workers, many of them women, outbuilding the enemy tank for tank.
By 1942, the Axis looked almost unstoppable, and then everything began to turn.
In the Pacific, the U.S. sank Japan's carriers at the Battle of Midway, a stunning upset. In North Africa, the Allies finally halted the Germans at El Alamein.
And in the east, the Germans reached the city of Stalingrad and got stuck in a brutal street fight.
The Battle of Stalingrad became one of the deadliest battles in all of human history.
The Soviets surrounded the entire German army and forced its surrender.
It was a disaster for Hitler, and the great turning point on the Eastern Front.
From this moment on, the Axis would be pushed back on every single front.
The Allies had the momentum and an unstoppable ocean of industry and manpower. In total secret, Allied codebreakers cracked Germany's unbreakable Enigma cipher, quietly reading its plans. At Kursk, the largest tank battle in history, the Soviets shattered Germany's final great offensive in the east. But far behind the front lines, the Nazis were carrying out one of history's greatest crimes. The Holocaust, the deliberate, systematic murder of 6 million Jewish men, women, and children.
Millions more. Roma people, disabled people, prisoners of war, and others were also murdered.
It remains one of the darkest chapters in the entire history of humanity. Around the world, entire cities were flattened, and tens of millions of civilians lost their lives. This was not a grand adventure. It was the deadliest catastrophe the world has ever seen. Behind every number was a real person, a family, and a future, erased. Remembering them honestly is the whole reason this story must be told. Yet everywhere, ordinary people resisted, hiding the hunted, sabotaging the enemy, refusing to give in. And many risked everything to shelter and rescue the persecuted. Small, secret acts of enormous courage. By 1944, the Allies were finally ready to take back Western Europe. June 6th, D-Day, the largest seaborne invasion ever launched onto the beaches of Normandy. The cost was heavy, but the Allies broke through and poured into France. From the west came the Allies. From the east came the Soviets. Germany was being squeezed. Paris was liberated to roaring crowds. In the Pacific, the U.S. fought island by bloody island, closing in on Japan. Germany's last big gamble, the Battle of the Bulge, failed in the frozen Ardennes. The Third Reich was collapsing inward from every direction.
And the Soviets reached the very outskirts of Berlin itself.
In the south, the Allies invaded Italy itself, and Mussolini's regime came crashing down. In the Pacific, islands like Iwo Jima and Okinawa were captured at a horrific and heartbreaking cost. April 1945, the Soviets stormed into Berlin, street by street. Trapped underground in his bunker, Hitler took his own life. On May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered. Europe erupted. Victory in Europe Day. Millions poured into the streets. In Europe, the nightmare was finally over. But across the Pacific, Japan fought on, refusing to surrender. The United States had finished a terrifying new weapon, the atomic bomb. On August 6th, an atomic bomb destroyed Hiroshima. 3 days later, another struck Nagasaki. The destruction and loss of life were almost beyond comprehension. On August 15th, Japan surrendered. At last, World War II was over. The final cost, an estimated 70 to 85 million lives, the deadliest war in all of history. From the ruins, the world tried to build something better, starting with the United Nations. But the US and the Soviet Union were already eyeing each other. The Cold War was about to begin. As the Allies advanced, they liberated the Nazi camps and revealed the full, staggering horror to the world. Afterward, at Nuremberg, the surviving Nazi leaders were put on trial for their crimes against humanity.
And the victors helped rebuild the shattered continent, hoping, desperately, that such a war could never happen again. World War II. Simplified? Yes, but a story the world must never, ever forget.